Hey, my name is Sam Topman, and this is my teaching submission. Today I'm going to be talking about loops in Java. This is for 14 to 16 age group, and this is assuming they have a basic knowledge of Java. They understand that Java is a programming language. They've done a little bit of coding themselves. They know how to initialize and declare a variable. They're aware of string objects and arrays. So I'm going to get started. Hey guys, thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to be talking about loops in Java. My name is Sam Tobman, and I'm happy you're here. Before we get started, I'm just going to introduce myself. My name is Sam Tobman. I was originally born in Bozeman, Montana. I actually grew up in Boone, North Carolina, though, which is a small town in the mountains. Born in the mountains, raised in the mountains. I'm a big fan of the mountains. I like to ski. But I actually grew up playing soccer and basketball. Um, and then I went to Appalachian State University where I studied chemistry. Appalachian State is it's the university located in Boone. But now I'm pursuing a master's in computer science at Georgia Tech, and I'm really loving it. Some fun facts about me: I've lived in 6 states. My favorite color is purple, and my favorite programming language is Java. So I'm happy to be talking to you guys about it today. So today we're going to be talking about loops. First, I want to talk about what are loops. So loops are statements in code that allow us to repeat some block of code without copying and rewriting that entire block. Today we'll cover 4 types of loop statements: the while loop, do while loop, for loop, and for each loop. Looping can also be called iteration. Let's get started. Feel free to pause at any moment if you want to take notes, or rewind if I'm going too fast. First, I want to talk about why use loops, right? Loops sound cool. What's the point? So on the left here, in honor of the fact that the Super Bowl is happening this weekend, I have a class called Super Bowl, and inside that class we have an array containing a string array containing the San Francisco 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs. So let's say we have this array and we want to see the teams in that array. So we would print out the team in the first index of that array. Remember, arrays are 0 indexed, so the first team starts at 0, and then we'll print out the second team at index 1. That's great. That works really well. Everybody's happy about that. The problem happens, though, when, let's say, instead of just looking at the Super Bowl, we're looking at the NFL in total, right? I think the NFL has 32 teams, so we have an array with 32 teams in it, and we want to print out each one of those teams. That's going to take 32 print statements. That's a lot of print statements, and that's a lot of copy-pasted code, which is not necessarily a great thing, and there's a better way to do that. So on the left here, I have that same problem where we're looking at the NFL, all the teams in the NFL, and we want to print out all the teams in our array. On the right, we're using a type of loop. This is a for each loop, and I'll get to that in a few slides. But as you can see on the left, I didn't completely write out all the print statements, but we would have hit 32 print statements. On the right, we have 1 print statement. We have 1 other line of code, and we're able to do the same exact thing that we can do on the left on the right. So we're going to begin with while loops. While loops execute some code statement until a condition is false. The syntax for while loops is shown here, where we have our while statement, some Boolean expression enclosed in parentheses, and then our body statement enclosed in brackets. So basically what's going to happen is that body statement is going to execute over and over and over again until our Boolean expression becomes false. So it could never execute if our Boolean expression is false from the beginning, or if we're not careful, it could execute infinitely if we don't set some way for that Boolean expression to become false at some point. So on the left here, we have that same code from earlier where we're printing out all the teams in our array using 32 print statements. And on the right, we're using a while loop. So as you can see, we're initializing a variable index, we're setting it to 0, And then we have our while statement with our Boolean expression. And inside the expression, we have index is less than teams.length. So if we're looking at all 32 teams, that is going to become 32. And obviously, our index starts at 0. Our body statement contains a variable that we set to be whatever index in the array we're at, and then we're going to print out that variable. So what that's going to do is go through the array and print out each team in our array. And then we, at the end of our body statement, we have to remember to increment our index. If we don't, we would get stuck in an infinite loop like I spoke of earlier. And that's no fun for everybody. So yeah. Next up, we have do-while loops. Do-while loops are really similar to while loops. They execute some code statement at least one time and then operate like while loops where they execute until a condition is false. So they look like where we have our do statement, and then we have our body statement enclosed in brackets, and then we have our while statement with our Boolean expression. So I didn't put this in code because it's so similar, but you can imagine, the use case of this is if we have some body statement we want to execute one time, and we're guaranteed to execute it one time, and then then it operates like a regular while loop. Next up, we have for loops. For loops execute until some condition is met, and this is the syntax for for loops. We have some initialization statement, some condition, an update statement, and then our body statement enclosed in brackets. So on the left here, we have our while loop from earlier. Looks great, still works. On the right, we have our for loop. So we're initializing a variable I to 0. It works in a similar way to the index for the while loop. And then we want to execute our for loop while that index I is less than teams.length. And then instead of having to execute our index inside of the while loop, we're doing it in this expression in closing parentheses at the beginning. And then we have a similar string team equals teams of I. We're doing a similar team where we're looping through our array and then printing out that variable that we're setting. So next up, we have for each loops. For each loops iterate over an entire data structure like an array. And this is the example I used at the very beginning. I told you guys I'd get to it. We're here now. So the syntax for that is we have our for statement. We have some variable type that we set. And the important thing here is that that variable type has to match the variable type of the array or the data structure that we're looping over. And then enclosed in brackets, we have our body statement. So you guys might remember this from the beginning of the presentation. On the right here is that same code. And on the left is our for loop from a few slides ago. So as you can see on the right, we have our string team. And that's going to be set to each team, each index in our array teams. And so then we can just go ahead and print out that variable that we're setting in the beginning of our for loop. So as summary, loops are statements in code that allow us to repeat a block of code without rewriting that entire block or loop through data structures or other objects. We have 4 types of loop statements: while, do while, for, and for each. And I just want to say happy coding. Thanks for watching, guys.